Welcome to the Happiness Matters podcast, where we'll explore happiness at work and show you how to coach yourself to be happier there and more successful too, no matter what.
Welcome everyone. I'm Julia Seal, and in today's Insight session, we're talking about the human smile. First, I have to apologize again. I still have flu, so please forgive my croaky voice. So we'll be looking at what it means for your self-coaching and how we can apply our insights into the first part of this coaching together, our Series 1, Defining, Assessing and Visioning. So far in these Series 1 bonus episodes, we've gone from exploring the yellow smiley face, emojis and emoticons, where we unpacked our beliefs about happiness and happiness at work. And we use these discoveries to illustrate our coaching journeys so far, as well as to offer you some quick coaching hacks. What you've learned so far, has it made you smile? Even a little bit? Did you enjoy learning about Japanese manga comics, hidden keyboards on the iPhone, and the worst movie? What about Harvey Ball and the color of Monday in Thailand? Now let's look at the actual act of smiling, the human smile. We're also going to go into the advice that we often hear related to our happiness of just smile, and why it's important to take this advice, and also to reject this advice. And we're going to do it with a little bit of help from the world of poetry today. So I hope you have fun. To join us on this coaching journey, please visit our website, Happiness-Matters.coach. Here you can download all the free tools I have created for you to guide your Series 1 journey. And you can also listen to all the other podcast episodes in Series 1. You can, of course, listen to these by subscribing to the podcast in your own podcast player. And find us by searching for Happiness-Matters or my name, Julia Seal. And that should do it. Let's just start with considering what a smile actually is, in the same way that we looked at the yellow smiley face and emojis and emoticons. You'd think that this would actually be easier because the explorations were about advertising logos and man-made pictorial representations of human emotions. But actually, the human smile is far less simple than you'd imagine. So we're going to unpack the human smile and see how it can help you at work and with your happiness at work, and also how to coach yourself. So what is smiling actually? At its most simple, it's a facial expression we make when the corners of our mouth curve upwards. As I said, it is simple. And among humans, this smiling is an expression that usually indicates pleasure, sociability, happiness, joy, or amusement. The upward curve, if you think about it, actually just makes us think about the human smile and smiling. Harvey Ball, creator of the famous yellow smiley face graphic, only had to draw 2 dots and this curve, and we immediately made it mean a human face that's smiling. And we tend as humans to find this shape in many things around us and give it smiley happy meanings. Think about the huge number of smiley face animals in the social media these days. Happy cat, laughing horse, smiley dog, laughing dolphin videos, they go viral. We think sunflowers and daisies are happy flowers, and we've been enchanted by Leonardo da Vinci's Mona Lisa's smile since 1503. This brings me to the first interesting thing about smiling, that there are actually 19 different types of smiles, and that this whole act of smiling and using it in your self-coaching is way more complex than just the upturned corners of your mouth. Okay, so it's probably not new to you that a smile can be used for more than just expressing genuine happiness. There's what we call fake smiles, or a smile of derision or ridicule, shame, nervousness, or embarrassment. When McDonald's arrived in South Africa in 1995, many people could not get over the huge smiles of the serving staff, precisely because they were so huge and bright. so much so that people saw them as fake and didn't really understand what the point of these huge smiles was. So yes, researchers say there are about 19 different types of smile, and only 6 occur when we're having a good time. And the rest are used for when we might be in pain, we're embarrassed, uncomfortable, horrified, or even miserable. And further, a smile might mean contempt, anger, or disbelief, that we're lying or that we're lost. So all smiles are not the same. Now, understanding the human smile, really trying to work out what this complexity is all about, gained traction back in the early 1800s with a neurologist called Duchenne de Boulogne. Duchenne was interested in the actual mechanics of our facial expressions, the exact muscles that went up into making them, and the smile included. The history of our modern medical knowledge is pretty shocking. Never mind the murderous Burke and Hare in Scotland. In France, Duchenne experimented with electrical shocks. His interest was to work out how the muscles in the human face produced facial expressions, which he believed to be directly linked to the human soul. So he attached electrodes to people's faces and shocked them into action. He found 60 of them, including the 2 that we're most interested in, a genuine smile and a fake smile. The Duchenne smile, this is what we see as a real smile, a genuine, authentic one, the one that's associated with genuine feelings of pleasure and giddy happiness. And this smile uses 2 muscles. The zygomatic major raises the corners of our mouth, and the other, the orbicularis oculi, which raises the cheeks and forms the crinkles around our eyes. It's called smizing, smiling with the eyes, and it's nowadays considered to be associated with positive emotion. The other, the non-Duchenne smile, uses only 1 muscle, the one that raises the corners of our mouth, and this is the polite smile, also known as the Pan Am smile, or more recently, as the Botox smile. I think we all know these smiles. We see them everywhere in the retail world now, not just on the faces of flight attendants. This reminds me of 2 of Lewis Carroll's characters from Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, 2 who had very famous non-Duchenne smiles. The first one, the little crocodile smile, as is recited by Alice. How doth the little crocodile improve his shining tail, and pour the waters of the Nile on every golden scale? How cheerfully he seems to grin, how neatly spreads his claws, and welcomes little fishies in with gently smiling jaws. The other is the fabulous grin of the Cheshire Cat, the mischievous cat who gives Alice rather useless philosophical advice and disappears and reappears at will, even his smile. She has often seen a cat without a grin, but never a grin without a cat. I loved Alice in Wonderland when I was growing up. I even had a record of songs that I can probably still sing today. I was in Oxford over Christmas and got to visit the Alice shop where the real Alice bought her sweets 150 years ago. It was a bit disappointing, really, as it's just a shop of tacky memorabilia and not much about the spirit of Through the Looking Glass. Interestingly, Duchenne's work developed into the facial action coding system, a 500-page manual that deconstructs every anatomically possible facial expression used nowadays by psychologists and animators. Talking more of smiles and facial expressions, one of my favorite charities is the Smile Foundation of South Africa that raises funds for children to undergo facial reconstructive surgery, mainly to correct facial deformities so that they can smile. If you are interested in their work, you can donate to them directly on their website, smilefoundationsa.org. So let's look at this advice that we hear so often in the world of happiness and happiness at work. Just smile. Why don't you just smile? And let's look at when and why this is good advice for our self-coaching journey and our happiness at work. When you contract your facial muscles, you trigger a sequence of events in your body that has an enormously positive effect on you and your brain. There's a lot of research out there about what exactly happens when you smile, and it's all related to the neuropeptides and neurotransmitters that your body releases. For example, the well-known feel-good neurotransmitters, dopamine, endorphins, and serotonin are released. These boost your mood and we feel happier. They ease sensations of pain, acting like a natural painkiller. They reduce the stress hormone cortisol in your body and boost your immune system. And they lower your blood pressure and lower your heart rate. So overall, it's pretty incredible what the act of smiling, what moving just those facial muscles can do to your body and to your mood. What is even more amazing is that this act of smiling doesn't even have to be a Duchenne smile. It doesn't even need to be coming from a place of genuine happiness and joy. Current research is telling us that even when we fake a smile, we can get the benefits from these neurotransmitters and neuropeptides. Apparently, our brains cannot tell if our smile is genuine or not. As I said, there's a great deal of research out there. One of the more interesting studies looked at better responses to presented humor when participants held a pencil in their mouths to facilitate the act of smiling. Or even one that shows that people who could not frown due to Botox injections were happier than those who could. So taking the advice to just smile, or fake it till you make it really, seems to be beneficial for our happiness and our happiness at work at a purely physical level. This reminds me, if you do want to start coaching with us, please join us in our Facebook coaching group. You'll find this at Happiness-Matters.coach. If you want to talk to me about an individual coaching program, please go to our website, Happiness-Matters.coach, and click on the yellow button. Now let's consider the advice when we apply it to outside of us in our lives with family and friends and work colleagues. So what's the impact on us smiling socially and at work? Again, there's an enormous amount of research in this area too. Smiling is a very well-researched topic, and there's far more than we can cover in this episode. But I've got 2 other interesting insights for you that I hope will help you decide how you can use the human smile in your happy at work no matter what. What happens to you, to us, when we see a Duchenne smile, a genuinely authentic smile? Again, it affects your body. Yes, actually seeing someone smile affects your body in a similar way that the act of smiling does. If we see an attractive smiling face, it activates our orbofrontal cortex, the region in your brain that processes sensory rewards. So when you view a person smiling, you actually feel rewarded. This might actually explain why so many of us are drawn to the yellow smiley face and all those smiley emojis and emoticons. We feel better. So think about it. If you were to smile at work, it's not only affecting your physical body, it's also creating feelings of reward in those who see you smiling. Then another thing that happens when we smile out in the world and at work. Apparently the part of your brain that is responsible for the facial expression of smiling when you're happy, or even mimicking another's smile, is the cingulate cortex, an unconscious automatic response area. Research shows that when responding to a photograph of someone smiling, the subject smiled automatically. They smiled back and couldn't help themselves, and that it took a real conscious effort to turn the smile upside down. So smiles are contagious. This suggests something called mirror neurons that fire when we see action, and that smiling is inherent and something universal. This might have to do with our evolutionary background. Primatologists have traced the smile back over 30 million years of evolution to a fear grin stemming from monkeys and apes, who often used barely clenched teeth to portray to predators that they were harmless, or to signal submission to a more dominant group member. So genuinely smiling at others is a powerful action we can take that has benefits that far outstrip the simple act of moving two muscles at the same time. It's at this stage we could move into a discussion about gratitude, compassion, empathy, kindness, and caring, all topics related to smiling and for us to explore when it comes to our happiness at work. And we will do this just in a later episode. For now, let's stick just with smiling and the advice to just smile, and look into when this is not good advice for us in our happiness at work. This relates to the fake smile, the non-Duchenne smile. This is where the smile moves away from being something positive and useful to our happiness and towards something that the primatologists are pointing towards in their research. Do you remember last week we talked about the need to decode meanings when we were discussing the meanings that we make around emojis and emoticons? I introduced you to semiotician Umberto Eco, whose challenge to us all is that everything around us needs decoding. We need to decode, to understand the meanings we individually attach to things, to experiences we have, to words said to us, to other people's behaviors. We need to learn to decode what we're making all these things mean to us and about ourselves. And we need to do this for smiles and smiling as well. The smile is a symbol, something we need to decode, to understanding the meanings that we attach to it and why we choose these meanings and not others. This brings us back to our Series 1 coaching, understanding how and why you define happiness and happiness at work the way you do, and how this helps you in your happiness at work, and how it doesn't help you, how the meanings you have chosen to make do not serve you. So we're looking at decoding these meanings, what it says about us, says about you, and what it says about others. Since I'm not in your head to do this, I'll share some of the common meanings we've attached to the smile beyond its evolutionary background, and beyond what American writer Max Eastman said, that a smile is a universal welcome. Back in 1924, Connie Landis, a grad student at the University of Minnesota, conducted research to determine whether certain experiences, such as pain or shock, always elicited the same facial expressions in all of us. And here we enter the realm of Duchenne's experimentation. Landis exposed participants to increasingly bizarre experiences. He made them smell ammonia and watch pornography. He electrocuted their hands while they felt around in a bucket of slimy frogs. And he asked them to cut the head off a live white rat with a butcher's knife. And if they didn't comply, he did it himself in front of them. Overall, he discovered that there is no one way to express an emotion. Not everyone uses the same expression to convey shock or disgust. And what he found was even more disturbing, that even during the most violent tasks, the most common reaction was not to cry or to get angry, it was to smile. Since then, there has been a lot of research into these findings, with researchers putting this down to the fact that smiling is considered a socially acceptable way of showing that you're sad or you're in pain. So smiling is definitely not always an expression of a positive emotion. And this is the caution when it comes to decoding a smile. What are you making that smile mean, and how is it serving your happiness at work? This is really important to understand when you look at how smiling is perceived across cultures. While it's still a primarily positive expression, there are many situations where smiling is perceived negatively. So our cultures do shape how we perceive various types of smiles. Of course, we run the risk of stereotyping an entire culture when we look at cultural tendencies to behave in a certain way. So when we're decoding a smile, we really should be careful with where we get our information. With me, for example, one of my early jobs was with a large Japanese trading firm, and we were told how to recognize anger in our Japanese colleagues. So we were told that our boss would not shout and rant at us if we made a mistake, but rather smile at us in a meeting. So if he was smiling, he was angry. Can you see how wrong this advice could go? Oh, a smiling Japanese man is actually really angry. And this could have ruined any further relationship with a Japanese colleague if I just accepted this as fact without understanding the social context. So I really am hesitating to list the kind of cultural differences between us when it comes to smiling, because perpetuating stereotypes is not helpful to any of us. But it is so important, especially in the world of work, to think more about our cultural differences, especially those of us working in multinational businesses. It would be most useful to conduct your own research into cultural differences. So don't just watch a company induction video, but rather take the time to confirm these perceptions with your actual colleagues. Just don't believe everything you read. So what does some of the research say? Well, in Asia, people might smile when they are embarrassed or in emotional pain. In Japan, smiling is also a way to show respect. In India and Argentina, smiling is associated with dishonesty. In Russia, smiling in public is considered unusual and somewhat suspicious. And a smiling individual may be perceived as less intelligent in Iran, in India, South Korea, France, and Israel. There's also been a lot of discussion into how different cultures perceive the big American smile, just like in South Africa when McDonald's arrived. Russian humorist Mikhail Svanetsky describes Americans as smiling as if they were plugged into the wall, while the Japanese are also said to find the American facial expressions to be a little strange, with mouths slightly too open and the mouth corners raised too much. And Japanese smiles can be just as confusing for outsiders. They can smile when angry, sad, or embarrassed, and they also smile when they're happy. Interestingly, it seems that those from a Japanese cultural background may be better than Americans at detecting when a smile is genuine or false. This is because, apparently, they focus their attention on the eyes rather than the mouth when expressing emotions or reading them in others. So they're much better at picking up the nuances in a smile and noticing, of course, the too-muscled Duchenne smile. In addition to this work on smiling across cultures, there's also been a lot of studies into smiling in different contexts, including at work. In particular, the hazards of smiling too much at work. For example, those who smile too much have lower salaries than their more assertive and domineering counterparts. They're more likely to receive biased advice from their colleagues. They're more likely to be seen as more gullible, more naive, even as fake. And even smiling too much in an interview can have a negative effect on your success. Apparently, only 1 or 2 smiles should do it. It's very confusing, isn't it? As psychologist Paula Niedenthal, who runs an emotions lab at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, says, while genuine happy smiles exist as a reward for when we've done something helpful to our survival, the non-enjoyment smiles are less about what you're feeling inside and more about what you want to signal to others. Some evolved to signal that we're cooperative and non-threatening. Others have evolved to let people know, without aggression, that we are superior to them in this present interaction. Many are polite gestures which demonstrate that we're following the rules, but they can also be an effective way of manipulating others or distracting them from our true feelings. More often than not, the universal symbol of happiness is used as a mask. So today we've looked at the human smile as a follow-on from our exploration of the yellow smiley face and the world of emoji communications. We've looked into how understanding this basic human expression can help us on our self-coaching journey in terms of the physical impact of smiling on our own bodies and the social impact of smiling on our social interactions and at work. There's some more work to do here as it applies to our Series 1, Defining, Assessing and Visioning Your Coaching Journey. So what I'm planning to talk about next week is to consider laughter in the same way. Then we'll end off this foray of these 5 insight episodes into the world of smiles with a look into the happiness wisdom concept of episode 1.4, where we went deeper into your definition of happiness. We'll talk more about the concept of life is 50-50, 50% negative and 50% positive, and what this means when we consider our happiness at work no matter what, after this exploration of the human smile. I'm going to leave you with another of my profound life influences, a poem brought to life by my mother, who, by the way, today is celebrating her 88th birthday. This little poem is on the first page of my childhood autograph book. Did you have one of these growing up? Friends would write you poems and jokes and funny little sayings. It's a bit like a long-lasting Instagram. I thought she'd made up the poem because my grandmother wrote beautiful, heart-wrenching poems in her later years. But I went looking for a source when recording today's episode. It is attributed to some modern authors, long after my autograph book of 1975, so I kept hunting, and the earliest reference I can find is something similar from back in 1917. Anyway, so here it is 102 years later in 2019 for you, my podcast listeners, as a simple self-coaching tip that I hope brings today's discussion to life for you. Smile a while. Smile a while, and while you smile, others around you will begin to smile. And soon there will be miles and miles and miles of smiles. And life is made so worthwhile just because you smiled. Have an absolutely beautiful day. There really is no better time to do this work together. Bye for now. I'm off to cook some delicious Marmite scones for my mother's birthday party.
Thanks for joining us on this Happiness Matters podcast. Do join us again here next week on Tuesday. You can subscribe to this series at Apple Podcasts on iTunes, or you can sign up for it on our website, Happiness-Matters.coach. That's Happiness-Matters.coach. COACH. Also, you can join our conversation on Facebook by following us there. Our Facebook page is also Happiness-Matters.coach.